Hi, I'm Brian Woodbury, and you're watching the podcast where nostalgia comes alive. It's Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show. Roll it!
Welcome to Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show, the podcast where nostalgia comes alive. Since July of 2021, Jake and his friends have interviewed professionals in the worlds of acting, directing, writing, puppeteering, and many more. Who will they be chatting with in this week's interview? Find out in this Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show episode.
Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show, where nostalgia comes alive. Happy here with us, as always. I'm your host, Jake Deffinbaugh. I'm here today, as always, our co-host, Chris Bixby, and Matt Bingel. How you guys doing?
Doing good, Jake. Doing good. Hello, everybody. How you doing, Jakey?
That's great to hear. I'm doing great, as always. Thank you for asking. Matt, what do you have for today?
Glad you're with us, folks. Our guest today is a puppet builder and designer. He's also a character designer, creative project manager, and art director. He is also the co-founder of Puppet Kitchen Productions, based in New York City. It's a company that offers design, fabrication, performance, consultation, and direction for productions both nationally and internationally, which we'll get to a little later. He's done a lot of other cool stuff, which we'll get to. Here he is, Michael Schupbach. Michael, welcome. Happy to have you here.
Hey, everybody.
Happy to have you here, Michael.
Yep, happy to have you here.
Nice to be here. Thank you for a very exhaustive intro. That was well done.
Thank you. Thank you. Much appreciated. So to kick this off, for those who don't know, would you care to tell our audience a bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. My name is Michael Schupbach, and you guys kind of covered it. I work in the entertainment field, sort of like capital E, and I've been able to sort of eke out a living building and designing creatures and kinetic characters. That's sort of my specialty. So I started at the Muppet Workshop when I was a wee little lad, and then was able to kind of keep that going and growing. So now that's how I earn my bread and butter.
So before starting your career in the puppet world, can you talk a bit about what your childhood was like?
Oh, yeah. Let's see here. So I grew up in the Bay Area, and I remember my folks only let me watch PBS. And as a result, I was exposed to Mr. Rogers and a lot of Sesame Street and a lot of like the McNeil Lair NewsHour. So I watched a lot of Sesame Street and a lot of like political discussion and like current events. So that I don't know if that warped my impression of media, but I do remember there was a time where we were there was an episode of like Mr. Rogers where he pulled back the camera and showed the set, and I remember like being like, that's when the penny dropped. I was like, oh wait, like that's a job. Like, people go to that place and do that thing. And then my dad pointed out, we were watching like Sesame Street, and he's like, boy, Grover and Bert sure sound similar, don't they? It's weird that they're not on camera at the same time. And I was like, wait, what? So I started looking at like TV through a critical lens and trying to figure out how it was made. And I was able to kind of parlay that into a career. Never went to art school, never didn't have any real skills to break into the industry. I just had like a lot of enthusiasm and like a lot of really nerdy knowledge.
Nice.
Interesting.
Nice.
Interesting how you were only watching PBS. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, did you have any favorite Muppets growing up?
Oh boy. Let's see here. Did I have any? I always gravitated towards Gonzo.
Oh yeah.
The fact that he was like all the characters are sort of in their own orbit, but he knew like exactly what he wanted to do, and it was painful and chaos. That was like his thing. And I kind of like that within like all of this world, like he had his own set of rules. He had his own way of entertaining himself, and he didn't really he didn't really care if other people got it. He just had his thing, and somehow that still resonates with me, probably a little too much.
Definitely. So now your career with the Muppets began as a builder and occasional puppeteer on the first season of Bear in the Big Blue House. How did
Yeah,
you
yeah.
begin working on that?
So yeah, that was a really wonderful time in my life. At the time it seemed perfectly normal. Like there's a couple steps that happened and I was like, oh, this is how it works. I was interning at the Jim Henson workshop, and my internship was about to wrap up, and they would do their best to give the interns like a reward or a treat or whatever, and they were having auditions at the carriage house, the Henson carriage house. And so our reward that day was we could just kind of watch the auditions. So I got to see Vicky Eibner do her stuff. I got to see like Leslie Carrara's come in and audition for the show. And at the time, Kip Rathke, who was the Muppet supervisor, was working on Trilo Puppet, and they didn't like the fur. They thought it was distracting, so he's like ripping the fur off the puppet just to show the foam. And I asked if I could help, and he said sure. And then he's like, "Are you an intern here? We start shooting in a couple weeks. Could you help out?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, of course." I didn't think he was serious, and my internship was wrapping up in a week anyway. But yeah, why not? And then they called me, and they're like, "Okay, like, be at Kaufman Astoria Studios." And so I had to like frantically call my school and like try to extend and then find an apartment. But I was able to make it work. And then like, sure enough, I walk in on the first day, and there's this huge elevated set. They just finished making the bear outfit and the bear costume puppet, and it was gorgeous. They were so proud of it, and like rightly so. Like it's one of at the time the best suits they'd ever made. They really took the lessons that they learned from Big Bird and the Coca-Cola Bears and just made this suit that was so elegant, and these gorgeous puppets, and they just said, we just go take care of them. So I did my best. I made a lot of mistakes, and thankfully none of them got me fired.
And I also and I saw on your website you built the Grandma Flutter puppet.
Yeah, I built that with Kip Rathke, and Paul and Draco was the designer on that. And that initially started off as like just the stunt puppet. It was just a little stunt tutter, and Kip really sat me down and showed me how to do like the Henson stitch, and how to make those little tiny arms. And even though it was a stunt puppet, we really put a lot of it's got to be the same size. It's really got to look correct. And then they wrote in a character called Grandma Flutter, and we just took that puppet that was sewn up as a little guy you could kind of throw across the scene, and we turned him into a puppet. Made that beautiful hairdo that's on her, and if you look, there's even he hand carved a little brooch that's around her neck or her little shawl. So to be like 19 and sort of given the chance to like just kind of jump in and do it was really, really empowering, and kind of made me decide like, oh wait, I want to do this.
So now I'm kind of curious, do you have any like favorite bear episodes that you worked on?
Oh, that's okay. So the Eric Idle has a great quote. He says like, it's been so long since he shot Monty Python that he can now watch the episode as a viewer. Like he doesn't know how they end, and he's surprised by the jokes. So I watch I'll put it on with my dog here, and like I'll be surprised by the episodes. Like my dog for some reason loves the show. She finds it very soothing. I think for me it's when you're on the set, you see all the shots, but you're not necessarily involved with the edit. In fact, the edit usually happens after you've left. So we got to see like one or two rough cuts, but we really didn't get to see too many of the episodes while we were working on them. So I think my favorite part of it was just the shots with Bear in the Moon when Lynn Thigpen would come in. She did the voice live, at least for the first season, and Peter Lentz lip synced with Luna live to her, and Noel played along. They had such a good rapport. It was just this kind of magical moment where like they dim the lights in the set. There's only a few people on, and it just this may sound dumb, but it kind of felt like you're home, like they were having this nice conversation and you were there to help, and it just it was just a really nice moment to kind of see all that come together. And they would shoot like a bunch of them in one go, so you would have like 4 hours just watching them sing together, and it was really nice.
For Bear, you folks might remember there was a season 2 episode of The Puzzle Place. I don't remember what episode it was.
Oh yeah,
it was oh god, it was like some mystery episode that they were doing, and on like this giant computer, which is pretty advanced for the mid 90s, I must say. Leon actually calls up the chief from One of the World's Crime in San Diego, who was played by Lynn Thigpen. I found that really interesting. You know, it fascinated me, and I guess it's how that all started. It was really, really fascinating that they worked even before Bear. Because Lynn's very talented in itself.
Yeah, and then Noel just suggesting her to be part of the show, and then part of Bear, and then boom.
And I think Noel wrote that episode. He mentions it in his book, and I think that's one of the things that I missed the most about it was like during that time there was a lot that was kind of near the end of like TV puppet production, but there Noel says it in his book that like when he was growing up there was a lot more of that. And so there was this real kind of fraternity of people who had worked in that genre. So he and Lynn knew each other. Noel and Peter both worked on Sesame Street and had a good rapport. So to see them come in really as like pros, and then see like Tyler and Vicky coming in pretty fresh, and like just watching where people were successful and where people struggled was really fascinating.
Definitely.
Yes. I also have a copy of his memoir. It's a fantastic book.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing. It's amazing book.
Please know this is not a paid advertisement. Thank you very much. But this is a phenomenal book. It's called Hey, This Was Really Fun.
My gosh, absolutely.
Highly recommended. I think don't you? I know. Do you have a copy? Don't you, Jake? Or am I thinking?
Yeah.
Okay, it was either you or somebody else, but it really is a fantastic book. Again, not a paid advertisement, but it really is fantastic. Highly recommend.
Yes, to the people who's big Bear fans or other things that Noel has done, just please just get that copy. It's just amazing.
Please.
Yeah, it really
absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it covers like Noel has touched a lot of kids TV throughout the years. He does a lot of work on John Oliver, and now he's directing on Sesame Street. And he Noel has also like been just really supportive of a lot of the people who've worked there in kids TV. I remember I moved back to New York City, and he was really, really welcoming in a way that I didn't really expect. I just kind of like worked on a show for a little while, but he always really treated me well, and like his wife is amazing, and it was just I say this about Noel and I say this about Big Bird, like their performers are as nice as you'd want them to be for the people who play those characters. They're not they're kind, they're giving, and that's that's kind of what you'd expect from people who play those kind of characters.
They absolutely are. We've had a lot of Sesame puppeteers on our show in the past, and you hit the nail on the head. They are just some of the most down to earth people, and they're just great. They really are.
Yeah, they're amazing.
Yeah, I did. There was one day where again I was just interning, and they were doing staged photos for a Sesame book. So they've got John Barrett and Danielle posing the puppets, which was kind of their main gig back in the day. But they had a couple kids in, so they wanted a puppeteer there to sort of interact with the babies and just get some natural photos. So they brought Carmen in to just kind of puppeteer and keep them alive. And
Wow.
and again, I was just kind of sitting there, like kind of helping out. Danielle let me like prep stuff for her, and Carmen and I just like got into a long conversation about Contact, the book, and she was reading it, and like it was only years later that I actually got to meet her and become a peer. But just it's always nice when you meet your heroes and you are as impressed as you want to be.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Definitely. So speaking of Sesame Street, after working on Bear, you started working on Sesame Street as a puppet builder and wrangler. How did that kind of come about?
I really lucked out on that one too. You know, there was a time at Bear, especially at the beginning, where a number of the puppets weren't working out. Like, just didn't like them. Brian Henson came in, and it was just, you know, it's tough because those go through such a lengthy design process. Paul and Draco designed them, and as I recall, he was just a builder at the shop, but they were taking sketches, so he submitted these sketches, which were amazing. The sketches looked great. They built the puppets, and it just wasn't working. So we had a frantic like 2 weeks where we'd already shot with them, and they needed to go back and like rebuild them. So they rebuilt Ojo at the shop that was on site, and Ed Christie rebuilt Luna from hand. He ran the Muppet Shop, and Kip came to me. He's like, I just need you to handle the floor. I can't be bothered. Like, I can't be, you know, I need to focus on this. Just go take care of it. And I was able to do it. And that stuck in Ed Christie's head. And so when I called him for a letter of recommendation, he was like, Sesame Street is starting. Can you get out here? I was going to go down to LA and try to work at the Creature Shop. And based on that, they just brought me in. And again, I'd never been to art school. I didn't really have any skills, but the Muppet Shop was really good about not gatekeeping. So if you came in and wanted to work with something, they would show you how to do it. They'd show you the materials. You'd go down and talk to Raleigh Crusoe, and she'd be like, well, on the Dark Crystal, we did this, and on Labyrinth, we did this. And so I think you should do this. And she's usually right. So I was able to really grow my skill set really quickly. And it was like graduate school. It was really, really a special time. So yeah, I started off as a wrangler and was loving it just fine. But I went to my boss, Stefan Rotendaro, at the time and said, like, I want to be doing more. So one of the tests that he would give me is he would give me an old Sesame AM Muppet, like just one of those, the blue guys or the pink guys or whatever. And he would say, like, all right, take all the old foam out of it and replace it. And if you can make it match perfectly, then we'll give you another one. And so he taught me how to cut foam and how to glue, and I was able to kind of build up from there to kind of prove that I wasn't gonna fuck it up.
Right,
Say that on the show.
Yeah, you're fine.
All right.
Now, during your time on Sesame, you got to work on a segment of Elmo's World, building various characters and alternate Elmo puppets. What was that like, getting to work on that?
That was great because it was super hard. So I did a couple of those morph puppets, and then I did a couple of those guest puppets. So it would be like Elmo talks to a bell, Elmo talks to a yo-yo, or Elmo is a mouse, Elmo is a dog. And those are like super specific. And at that time, they'd let me kind of do some character designing. But with the Elmo mouse thing, that was like the first kind of like, it's your thing, do it. So you had to find a way to, you know, Elmo's got that really specific colors. He's got really specific eye shapes, and there's a very specific orientation of how the eyes and the nose meet. And you've got to find a way to apply that to a different animal and have somebody still recognize it as that character. And there's no secret sauce to it. You just kind of like have to hit that. You have to play with all three until it feels right. And so I made this little sketch of a mouse character, and then Kevin wanted it really close to his hand to do all of this kind of Muppety, kind of squishy, squashy stuff. So it really fit like a glove, but he wanted the legs to move and the arms to move and the ears to move, and the nose to move. So ultimately, to shoot that thing, they had a puppeteer on the ears, they had a puppeteer on the legs, a puppeteer on the arms, and then he was in the head and making the nose go. So like 4 or 5 dudes attached to this little tiny mouse to bring it to life. But again, that's kind of the nice thing about that shop is, again, there's no gatekeeping. So they'll show you whatever you want. And there's also no specific way to get it done. So for the yo-yo, they knew that they needed it to go up and down and spin. So I had to engineer rings within rings, because Muppets always need to have a hand in it. So somebody's hand needed to go through it, and then there needed to be an outside ring, and it was totally impossible. And I had about 3 weeks to do it. And I look back on those days now and I kind of shudder, like, ugh. How did I get that done?
Right.
Can't imagine, because it was so specific.
Yeah, but also, like, the nice thing about that is they really, if you come in and you're excited and you want to do something that's hard, they'll let you do it. The flip side of it is, like, once you agree to do it, you got to do it. Like, there's no,
You gotta do it.
You can't go to them and say, I want to push this date, I want to do it later, it's not ready. Like, it shoots on Tuesday and you are either ready. Well, there was no, you're just ready.
It's a challenge, but it's a fun challenge, as we've said on the show about other things before.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the most fun work you'll ever hate.
Right.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
by the time you're done, you're like tired and miserable, and you pulled an all-nighter. But, like, again, when you see that edit or you see kids interacting with it, like, it's worth it.
So speaking of Sesame, you brought up Big Bird earlier. You were featured in the documentary I Am Big Bird, the Carol Spinney story, talking about wrangling Big Bird and getting to work with the late great Carol Spinney.
Yeah.
What were some of your fondest memories of working with Carol?
Oh boy, there's so many. Like, that guy was he was a real pro. He he was always easy to get along with, and he always, like, wanted to have a little fun with his work, which was a great environment to hang around in, because, like, you've got all of this downtime, and he was always willing to, like, come by and hang out by the Muppet box. You could, like, during his scenes, you could sit back behind Oscar's can and just kind of watch him work, which is nuts if you think about it. Like, this guy invented that character. At the time I got there, he'd already been doing it for like 35 years. The can is the same, the puppet is the same from when they started, and just to be able to, like, kind of participate in that legacy was really nice. And the fact that after, like, 50 years of work, there's this documentary, and, like, I was lucky enough to get even, like, a couple seconds in it, that's a real gift,
Absolutely.
Debbie, his wife, was the one who really kind of helped put that together and get everything organized, and she supported him all the way through. And I think she was the one who called me in to, like, be on the documentary, or suggested me. And what was amazing about her was, like, she, in the documentary, they talk about how they traveled better together and Carol was in a better mood. But Debbie also, like, looked out for him on these away trips. And I noticed it. There was one bit with Oscar, and I think we were in Boston, and I was sitting in the wings, like, looking out, like, just making sure the Carol wasn't going to tip over or fall. And I watched Debbie, and she was kind of lip syncing along, and she knew the lines, and she was, like, almost like a pageant coach. Like, she wanted Carol to be successful, and clearly helped him prep, and really just kind of enabled a lot of success. So to be close with the two of them was just a real, I don't know, just a real honor.
No,
Yeah, in fact,
Carol.
so we quick story on Carol. We were in Hawaii on vacation with my family, and my mom saw in the newspaper that he was doing a signing of his book. So we went. We got in line, and he signed our book and everything. And he invited us to lunch afterwards, and we're just kind of hanging out. And then our trip went, and my folks flew home. I flew back to New York City, and he was on the same flight as my folks. So he comes back from first class and says hello to them and keeps talking. And then finally, when my sister drives up in the family car to pick up mom and dad, Carol unprompted just hops in the passenger seat and says, "Hello, Morgan. I'm Big Bird. La la la."
Oh my god!
Oh
she
my
doesn't know this guy
God.
from Adam. But this
God.
dude just jumped in her car and sang at her. But but that,
wow.
that kind of that spirit of fun and mischief. I try to
Yes.
keep it in all of my gigs, and I
Oh,
often
yeah.
get in trouble for it. But he
Oh, come on.
yeah. One more, and then we can move on. He told the same joke at the rap party for 30 years. Maybe not every year, but he told the same joke, and it's a good joke, but talk about a long game. The first time you hear it, it's hilarious, and the second year you're like, oh, is he doing that joke again? And then 3 and 4 and 5, and then one year he couldn't do it, so Snuffy told the joke but in his own way. And I just love that you can plan a gag over 3 decades and have it still be funny.
So now in the 2000s, you co-created the Playhouse Disney series Johnny and the Sprites with John Tartaglia. So now,
Yeah.
what went into the kind of a creation process of that?
Okay, so that's a good question. That all stems from John. He was in Avenue Q, and once there's some buzz around it, he got approached by Disney to pitch a show. And I was always sketching on the set, and John and I were the only 2 people our age really on the set. So give or take, there was other people came through, but we would chat a lot about what was working, what wasn't, or gags that Johnny tried to get in that didn't get approved, and all this kind of stuff. So when he came around, he was like, "Do you want to throw around some ideas?" And so the weird part about that is there's no way to do it. There's no instruction book. There's no class you can go to. Maybe there is now, but we met with a writer named Daryl Watson. And we got enough ideas together that we thought we had something interesting, and we presented it, and Disney was like, "That's fine, but you're a bunch of kids. Who's gonna do this?" So Jill Gluckson had produced Sesame English with John, and Louise Gico was a writer on Sesame Street. So John reached out to her, she brought in Louise, and they really bashed it into a show. And put budgets onto it and turned it into a thing. So again, from my point of view, you just you intern at the Muppet Shop, and then you work at the Muppet Shop, and then your buddy gets famous, and then you pitch a show. It seemed like there was a regular progression. And now that I'm older and realizing that never happens that way, I didn't realize just how lucky we were. So John and Daryl and I met at Starbucks for a year or so and just kind of sketched some rough stuff out. And then once we got some official interest and Jill and Louise came in, we probably worked for another 6 months on the show Bible and getting the characters designed and set. I worked with an amazing artist named Evan Cheng, who took a lot of my sketches and really made them into more professional drawings. He's a much better artist than I am. And he was really instrumental in getting a polish to the work. And then they just give you a budget, and you've got to show up at Kaufman and Story Studios and make it all work. So we got a budget. We got 3 design built our puppets. We put together a puppet shop on site to build props and new characters. it's amazing that they let us get away with it. To be perfectly honest, we were punching way above our weight class on that. I still remember I was like on the train to Kaufman Astoria Studios, and it was our first day, and it was just this. You're going to Kaufman Astoria Studios to like start design to start fabricating the set and like set up your office, and it's just this box, and you're going to open it up once you get there. And I'm still in awe that we were able to not only get as much done, but like we put everything into that show. That show is so lush and so deep. There's so much going on. They really let us sort of run wild with it. So
Now, they had a lot of really good episodes. A lot of really good episodes. Do you have any favorites from Johnny and Sprites?
oh boy, there's the two that come to mind are we did one called Lily's Hair, where her hair keeps growing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I remember when John like read me the pitch for it, I was like, there's no way. Like it ended with a waterfall of hair. They needed 22 individual hairdos that each had a puppet effect. And I remember like trying to talk Don down into something more doable. And that did not happen. We had to buy a bolt of blue fur for the cascade at the end. We had to bring in a special puppet builder just for the hairdos. Emily DeCola made all of those hairdos. So there's one that had a little skateboarder on there, one that was a tornado that spun. And we had to shoot them all in one song. And then at one point she had a giant ice cream cone hairdo that we patterned, and then Jim Krupa had a rod up top and would kind of follow her around. So if you look, her hairdo always cuts off at the top because there's a giant man holding a stick, because it would be too heavy for Carmen to hold on her head. And I still have video. I stayed up all night making that hairdo, and I've got video of me in the shop wearing it to test it out. Completely delirious. It's amazing. But my favorite, I think, is there's one called Muddle in the Puddle, where Ginger really isn't happy with her expression, and and we built this beautiful pond set and set her up so she's looking in the puddle, and then we shot it and it was beautiful. And then when we were done, like Jen Barnhart was assisting, Leslie was obviously performing Ginger, and they both came out and they'd just been crying the whole time. Like, they were just so deep in the character. And you know, for me, that was like, oh wait, this is something that we're going to be remembering for the rest of our lives. This is really something beyond just like a gig. This is something really special.
Absolutely. And you mentioned designing and puppeteering on the show as well. What was it like kind of working with those puppets?
Well, first off, we lucked out that we had John Orberg and Jim Krupa make them. Those guys are the best.
Yeah, Jim Krupa is great with puppet mix. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, and like he really got to. We always would design something for him to make a little thing of, but John Orberg, he did Eureka's Castle. I'm blanking, and I shouldn't, because like not only he had this talent of all of those heads are carved. They're not patterned. Like he sat there with a pair of scissors and carved them out by hand. So he could do duplicates. And then he had a way of patterning them so they had like a flexibility in the jaw that was just magical. So he also would, I would come in with these designs. I'm like 28, like, look at this thing. And he's like, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. Let me show you what you want. And then he would make it better. And he really gave me just a crash course in like how to make an appealing design. Something that, I can draw a picture, but have it be appealing in 3 dimensions and on camera is a really important part of the skill. So to perform with any of those characters was amazing. We had those little balls of fur called the fuzzies.
Yes.
And I remember we brought in Noel one day to perform. We had a big group scene, and I was so excited to perform with Noel. Like I'd been an intern, and now we're together in a shot. And the first thing Noel did was step right in front of me, and he blocked my monitor and my puppet. And I was like, oh. I've waited for the chance to get edged out of a shot by Noel McNeil. This is a real honor. So, you really, the thing that everyone takes for granted is, be it Sesame Street, Between the Lines, any of those shows, the work is super hard. Like you have to come in and have a really good attitude, and you have to be ready to collaborate. But none of it is easy. You're exhausted, you're tired, and Noel McNeil, all 6 feet of him, is trying to push you out of a shot. And you have to be nice about it.
Right.
Some of my favorite episodes in that series, though, is Roots, the dudes, laugh,
Yeah.
laugh.
Oh yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, and also
there are a lot of great episodes.
A lot of them are really good.
Yeah, is there like a character that resonated with you, or a certain thing that you liked, or?
My favorite character growing up, I think, was Basil. I think he was my favorite as a kid.
Jeez.
Oh yeah, Basil was great.
Yeah, that's Tim Lagasse.
I love them all. I love them all.
Yes.
They were all fantastic.
Yes.
Loved him.
I mean,
Yeah.
all the Sprites, they're awesome,
Yep.
for the show. So
Yeah, we tried to give them each, like they had their antennae mechanisms, but we tried to give them each like a character affect. Like Basil has those eyes that roll around, and that mechanism is impossible. You are performing like this, and then your middle finger is going up, down, left, or right, and only Tim could have performed that, and he performed it amazingly well.
Oh yeah.
Ginger had these wings that would pop out, and when they went on to do Abby Cadabby, like they used Jim Krupa. We want those wings. Hers are a little bit different, but like I got to perform her wings a few times, and that was just to be kind of. She found a way for them to express her joy and to be caught up in that. Lily not only had to be the tallest and the strongest, but at the time on Sesame Street, they'd cut off Rosita's wings, which I disagreed with. So I put them back in on Lily so Carmen could actually get up into the shot. And Root was designed around that peekaboo mechanism just for the younger group. So we really got to put a lot of stuff into that show.
Yeah, Johnny and the Sprites was a good show. I'm hoping it goes to Disney Plus one day.
I hope so too.
Yeah, me too. It'll take guys like you kind of like speaking up and saying that you want to see it. One of the things that's weird about that show is season 1 was regular definition, and season 2 was high def. So our aspect ratio changed. Thankfully our puppets made it through. We didn't have to do any like reskinning of them, but they'd have to have like a box for season 1 and then go wider for season 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is it about this? What is about the show in this time frame that like made you guys kind of choose this this window to do the show in?
Say that again.
Well, you've got like a specific sort of. You're looking at Jen Barnhart and Noel, and like is it the genre that you guys like, or is there a certain era of your nostalgia that you kind of focus on?
Yeah, I mean, because I grew up watching
both
that era of Sesame Street.
For me, I kind of like
Bear and Between the
Lions.
Lions,
like early 2000s.
Book of Pooh.
We go
back
a little further, but our main thing is like our main thing.
In that generation too. So
our main thing is kind of like late 90s, early 2000s. Because Chris and I were born in 2000. And Jake was born in 2004. It's odd that he's the youngest, yet his name's in the title. I find that weird, but whatever. There's just something special about those, because there were so many incredible shows during that time too that we grew up with, like Bear and Sesame and Johnny and the Sprites.
We can literally go on and on and on about those.
Yeah,
we could. So many.
Yeah, and also there's, I kind of bemoan at the time there was a real push to go preschool with our
Mm-hmm.
content. And
Yep.
I think the kind of shows that we all wanted to make were for the personally, I wanted to make a show for the puppet nerds who watch this stuff in college when they should be studying, because that was me when I was in college. I would watch like old Muppet Show episodes and stuff. But like that 7 to 10 age range really has kind of disappeared. And I think
Oh
that's
yeah.
like Pixar movies have kind of picked it up, and like you can see it in movies, but like there's not too much television. It's either preschool or tweens. And
Yeah.
I think unfortunately at preschool we were kind of hemmed in by the kind of stories that we could tell. But once you get a little bit older, kids understand narrative a little bit more, they understand character a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And things like Fraggle Rock, like that's not a preschool show.
Oh, yeah.
That was our
No.
touchstone for the longest time. And I think we're doing those kids that age a disservice by not giving them a safe place on television to watch something.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So now, aside from working with Disney and the Muppets, you also made puppets for the sitcom Greg the Bunny. Can you talk a bit about that?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, that was so. Greg the Bunny was on Fox and got canceled, but the guys who created it owned the rights, and so they got a series on IFC. So that's where I came in, where they had a bunch of ideas that they didn't get to do on Fox, and they could get to do the show they wanted. So they had one character named the Wumpus who they wanted to bring back. He was on their public access for a while, and the puppet had fallen apart, so they wanted a new version of it. They needed some props as well, and my okay, two quick stories on this. One, I remember getting a call from them. They were like, "How do you get fake blood out of a puppet?" And I was like, "What?" And they're like, "We're about to do this scene. Somebody's about to die. We're going to spray the puppets with blood. What do we need to do to wash them out?" And I was like, "You don't do that. You like, it's not going to come out." They're like, "No, seriously. Like, what can we do?" I was like, "It's going to stain them." And then I hear, "Okay, I'll call you back." And then I hear, "Wait, guys, stop. Click." And that's, I assume that they cut it off in time. The other thing that I loved was we did a press junket with that show.
Oh, okay.
And so we were just in a hotel room. People are coming in for press, and we were on the same network as a Michael McKean show from Spinal Tap. So we're just in a hotel room doing our thing, and Michael McKean walks in and sees that we're shooting with a reporter and a puppet, and he goes, "Oh, sorry, guys." And he comes and then leaves. And then like 2 seconds later, he comes back in, and he, in the Spinal Tap voice, he's like, "No, I told them it's Spinal Tap then puppet show." And like all of us were like, "Oh shit." That was a fun show to work on. They wanted to do some wild stuff, and I always like it when a client wants to push and try to get a little bit more, something more extreme or something funny or something unusual in their builds. So
Definitely. And another show you worked on, it was more of like an outreach project. You worked on the show Seymour's Playhouse, which was on PBS.
Yeah. Wow, you guys do your research. I did a character named Lottie Lamb for that show that was performed by Z Briggs. And that was great. That's when I really, for a while, I really specialized in like super cute characters. And I really dialed in like her expression. And that was wild. Yeah, I was working. We were working out of a bar. We had a studio underneath a bar. Emily Nicole and I were working on that, and that was sort of the beginning of when we started doing the Puppet Kitchen. Yeah, I crashed that out, and Z did some really nice work for that.
So over the years, you also built puppets for various stage productions, one of them being Little Shop of Horrors, which you built puppets with Marty Robinson. What was it like working on that?
That was great. That's I met Liz Hara as an intern. She was an intern there. And she's gone on to write for Sesame Street and perform on Sesame Street and build. In fact, I think she's the only female to write, perform, and create for that show. I may be wrong, but still. And Marty did the off-Broadway version of Little Shop and then did the on-Broadway. When it went to Broadway, he got to design everything. And you kind of forget that, there's a movie that it's all based off Marty's stuff from off-Broadway, and then he just brings in all of the stuff from like years ago that became this kind of cultural milestone for us all. I got to make some giant tentacles that wound up getting cut, and some leaves. But that was another one where there was just no rhyme or reason. They were just like, we need 30-foot tentacles and we need 3 of them. Like, figure it out. So
Definitely.
Interesting. So speaking of Broadway, you also built puppets with Rick Lyon for the Broadway and Vegas productions of the long-running musical comedy 3-time Tony Award winning Avenue Q.
yeah.
Oh, that was a mouthful in and of itself. Could you share some of your experiences working with Avenue Q?
That was great. I really credit Rick for making me a really good builder. He was one of when I came back to the city, he was one of the first people who came up at like a puppet event and said hello. He would hire me when Sesame was wrapped, and I would go out to New Jersey and build puppets with him. And he's very exacting about what he wants, so I really got to be good. I think I found the playbill for the first reading of the show. It was in the basement of a church, and like we'd just finished Nicky and made like his beard, like his stubble, and I remember spray painting different versions of that to show to Rick like which one really looks kind of like Homer Simpson's kind of muzzle. But to see that show go from off Broadway at the Vineyard, where it's just like had that heart to it, to go to Broadway and then to see it just bloom into what it became was such a gift. Rick kept hiring me throughout the years to work on it, which I really, really appreciated at the time. And then to watch Stephanie and Jen and Johnny and Rick really show the directors how to make puppets work. If they hadn't been there, I think it would have come across as false or gimmicky, but they were able to show the director what makes a good show for these characters. And as a result, like that show, it's like nothing you've ever seen, and yet it feels appropriate and familiar at the same time.
Right. And so you mentioned co-founding Puppet Kitchen. How was that kind of assembled?
So that came out of Emily and I shared a studio space, and Eric and Emily had been working on a number of projects together. So that's Eric Wright and Emily DeCola. And we wound up kind of hiring each other for gigs. And then finally this space opened up in the East Village. It was an old kitchen in the back of a church school. And we rented the space and kind of converted it into a workshop. The best part of it was it had a vent hood for where the ovens used to be, stoves, and we used it as our spray booth. And because we were lucky enough to have that space in Manhattan, and we were lucky enough to work way too hard, we were able to like incorporate that as a business, and that paid our rent for like 12 years. And that was great because you not only could you do the creative, you also had to manage the production of it, the budget and everything. And it really gave me a great lesson in like, oh wait, like I can dream this up, but I got to pay for it too. So we didn't really have any instructions. We just kind of did it. It was really, really hard, but to think that we had like this safe place for the puppet community and we were able to do a lot of really good work in like the big mean city of New York City was a real triumph.
Definitely. So since we're getting close to wrapping up, to anyone watching or listening, what would you like to say to those who have supported you throughout your career?
I'm so grateful. I made a lot of mistakes and I fucked up a lot of shit. And for the most part, I think I was able to cover my butt. But I had mentors like Ed Christie and Kip Rathke and Stefan Rotendaro that really showed me how to do the Muppets the way that they wanted them done. Eric and Emily and I were this really strong tripod, and made me much better. And I also learned so much from the other people around me in this community, from like Jane Foytal to Lars to Marta Acrosti, to all the builders in New York. Really want to come in and share their skills and make everybody better. So I benefited from the community to kind of spur me on, and I'm just so grateful to have that be my grad school and my chance to grow up.
Definitely.
Absolutely. So before we get to this last question, if people would like to connect with you, where can people find you?
That's a good point. You can find me at michaelschupbach.com. I've still got that up, where you can see some of my older work. Most of my work right now is under an NDA, so I can only talk about it at specific times. But if you follow me on LinkedIn, you can see some posts. I'm about to post some stuff about a raptor that I'm pretty proud of. So mostly through my website and then LinkedIn.
Nice, and those will be in the
Awesome.
description down below for people to connect with you. So the
Yes.
last question that Jake's about to ask is a question that we ask all of our guests at the end. Go ahead, Jake.
Yes, thank you, Chris. So of course, this podcast is called Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show. Hey, look at that.
Yep.
So when you think of nostalgia, what do you think of, or in your own words, how would you define the word nostalgia?
Oh boy. How would I define nostalgia? Nostalgia is, for me, I think it is the most effective emotion, and I'm glad you guys do shows based on that. In my opinion, there's nothing better than like finding that thing that you loved and then coming back to it and having somebody say, yeah, that was great, and here's why it was great. So I do a lot of like Easter egg videos on YouTube, where we'll go through an old movie and we'll point out little hidden details. I love going to see movies that I love, like Back to the Future, but with an orchestra, because you get to love the thing that you loved then with other people who enjoy it. And I think you guys provide that. So not only do I like nostalgia, I think it's important to come back to the things that you loved back then and to find new reasons why you enjoy them. Like, that's to get to love something twice. Like, what a gift.
Definitely.
Yes,
Yep.
yes. Thank you. Great words to end off.
Yeah,
Awesome.
great.
Well, Michael, thank you so
Wonderful,
much
yeah.
for taking the time to do this. This was fun.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you very much for being on. Thank you so much for what you've done, being a part of our lives. Keep up the great work, and cannot wait with what's next for you. And I hope the meeting goes well. By the way.
Thanks, man. Hopefully,
Yeah.
I can talk
Welcome.
about it in 6 to 9 months. So
Yes.
We'll
Let's
probably
send the
have it
paperwork
back on
last.
then
We'll
if
keep-
that's all right.
We'll keep in touch, Michael.
Yeah.
I'll let you know when this goes up.
sounds good. All right, take
All
care,
right.
guys.
Enjoy the rest of your
Yeah,
day, Michael.
Michael.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
And ladies and gentlemen, it is goodbye from us,
Bye
as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, indeed.
Yes, we absolutely enjoyed our time with Michael Schupbach. Keep on the lookout for more wonderful interviews. And as always, what do we say, Jake?
Keep nostalgia alive. Take care, everyone. See you next time. See ya. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you for tuning in to another wonderful Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show interview. Be sure to follow Jake and the crew on social media and stream the show wherever you find your favorite podcasts. And as always, remember to keep nostalgia alive. Bye-bye.